You trust your doctor, but what happens when their quick, "you're fine," hides something life-threatening? Most seniors never push back, and that silence can cost them their independence or their life. You trust your doctor, but what happens when their quick, "you're fine," hides something life-threatening? By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly how to fight for answers and get the diagnosis you deserve. Music fades down. Susan continues, voice softening. I'm Susan Miller, and this is Senior Health Talks. Today, we're uncovering a problem nobody really warns you about: being dismissed in the doctor's office. You know that moment when you describe your pain, your fatigue, or your confusion, and the doctor glances at the chart and says, "It's normal for your age." That one phrase has silenced millions of seniors, but sometimes that phrase is wrong. And getting a second opinion could be the difference between catching something early or facing a crisis too late. I'll never forget my friend Carol. She was 72, vibrant, sharp. She started having chest tightness. Nothing dramatic, but enough to worry her. Her doctor ran some basic tests, told her, "Everything's fine, just anxiety." Carol believed him. 2 months later, she had a heart attack. She survived, but with lasting damage. And the hardest part, she told me, "I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to be a difficult patient." Dr. Harper, I think that's the story of so many seniors. They feel brushed off, maybe even embarrassed to insist. Why is this happening so often?
Susan, Carol's story is sadly common. Research shows that up to 20% of serious conditions in older adults are initially missed or misdiagnosed. Sometimes it's because symptoms in seniors present differently. Heart disease may show up as fatigue, not chest pain. Infections may cause confusion instead of fever. Doctors may interpret those signs as just aging, when really the body is waving a red flag.
So the danger isn't only the illness, it's the dismissal of the warning signs.
Exactly. And there's a structural problem, too. Most primary care visits last less than 15 minutes. In that time, a doctor is juggling multiple issues: blood pressure, diabetes checks, prescription refills. When a senior adds, "Oh, I'm just feeling a little off," it can get brushed aside. But here's the hidden truth. Seniors are more likely to suffer what we call diagnostic overshadowing, where new symptoms are blamed on existing conditions or aging, and that's dangerous.
Diagnostic overshadowing. So it's almost like the symptoms get filed under the wrong drawer and the real problem hides behind the label.
That's a perfect analogy, and studies confirm it. A 2021 article in the BMJ found that seniors, especially women, were more likely to be told their symptoms were non-urgent, even when underlying conditions were serious. That dismissal delays testing, delays treatment, and too often leads to worse outcomes.
I think about how many listeners right now have probably walked out of an appointment with that uneasy feeling, that voice in their gut saying, something's not right, but they pushed it down because the doctor said they were fine.
And that gut instinct matters. A fascinating study in 2020 from the Journal of Patient Safety found that when patients pushed for a second opinion, 60% received a refined or changed diagnosis. That's enormous. Sometimes it was a shift in medication, sometimes a whole new discovery. But in every case, it was advocacy that made the difference.
So the second opinion isn't just a luxury. It can literally change the outcome.
Absolutely. And yet many seniors hesitate. They don't want to offend their doctor, they worry about cost, or they've been raised to trust the expert no matter what. But here's the twist. Good doctors want you to seek a second opinion. It shows you're serious about your health. In fact, in oncology cancer care, it's considered best practice. The Mayo Clinic reported in 2017 that 21% of patients who sought a second opinion had a major change in their diagnosis. That's not rare, it's routine.
That's staggering. 1 in 5. Which means if you're listening and you've been told you're fine, there's a real chance the story isn't finished.
And Susan, here's the other layer. Sometimes it's not that the first doctor was careless, it's that medicine is complicated. Different specialists see the same symptoms differently. A cardiologist, a neurologist, a geriatrician, they'll each bring a different lens. That's why a second opinion isn't about mistrust, it's about widening the lens on your health.
Makes me think of when I bought my house. I didn't just take the first inspector's word. I had two people check it. And this is my health, which is a lot more important than a roof leak.
Exactly. And yet, culturally, we've been conditioned not to bother doctors. But if you don't push, the risk is high. A 2022 study in Health Affairs estimated that 12 million Americans experience diagnostic errors every year, and seniors are disproportionately affected. That's not small. It's a public health crisis.
So the danger isn't just the disease, it's the silence. The silence in that room when we nod and say, "Okay, doctor," even though our body is whispering something else.
Yes, and the silence is costly. But here's the hope. When patients break that silence, outcomes improve. In a moment, I'll share the exact words you can use without sounding confrontational that open the door to a second opinion.
I want to hear that because I know many of our listeners are already practicing in their heads. How do I say this without making my doctor upset? Stay with us, because what Dr. Harper is about to share could give you the confidence to speak up and maybe save your life.
You don't have to march into your doctor's office and declare war. The key is to frame your concerns in a way that builds partnership. One of the simplest phrases you can use is, "Doctor, I trust your opinion, but for my peace of mind, I'd like to get another perspective. Can you recommend someone?" That phrase is powerful because it's respectful. It shows you value their judgment, and it signals that your health matters enough to double-check.
I like that. It doesn't sound combative at all. It sounds like you're still trusting your doctor, but also trusting yourself.
Exactly, and studies show that framing matters. A 2021 survey published in Patient Education and Counseling found that when patients asked for a second opinion in a collaborative tone, over 80% of physicians responded positively. Contrast that with patients who came across as adversarial. Their requests were less likely to be supported. So it's not about what you ask, it's how you ask it.
That feels like a tightrope for a lot of people, especially seniors who grew up in a time when you didn't question doctors. My own father would have never dreamed of saying, "I'm not sure you're right." He would have just swallowed his doubts and his pills.
And that generational mindset runs deep. But silence has consequences. Another study in Mayo Clinic Proceedings in 2020 looked at seniors who sought second opinions for complex diagnoses. Nearly 30% received a significant change in their treatment plan. That means 3 out of 10 people could have gone down the wrong road if they hadn't spoken up. Think about that, 3 out of 10.
That's staggering and heartbreaking because it means so many are just living with the wrong diagnosis or the wrong treatment because they didn't know how to ask.
And that's why scripting it helps. Another phrase I give my patients is, "Doctor, I respect your opinion, but this symptom is still affecting my life. Could we explore more tests, or should I get another perspective?" You're not accusing, you're inviting. And often that opens the door to either deeper testing or a referral.
I can imagine someone listening right now, sitting at their kitchen table, practicing that line in the mirror. This symptom is still affecting my life. It feels strong, but not disrespectful.
And that practice matters. A study in Journal of General Internal Medicine in 2019 showed that patients who rehearsed their questions ahead of time were twice as likely to get satisfactory answers from their doctors. Twice as likely. So don't wait until you're sitting in that cold exam room to find your words. Find them beforehand.
I love that because I know I've walked out of appointments thinking, "Oh, I should have said this or that." Practicing ahead means you won't leave with that regret.
Exactly. And here's something most seniors don't realize. You can bring an advocate with you. A spouse, a friend, an adult child, someone who can take notes, ask follow-ups, even just give you courage. A 2022 study in Health Expectations found that seniors who brought a support person to medical visits had significantly higher satisfaction and were more likely to pursue second opinions. It's not weakness, it's wisdom.
I wish my mom had done that. She often came home from appointments confused with half-remembered instructions. I think if I'd been there, I could have helped her say what she was too shy to say.
And that's such a common story, which is why I tell families, don't just drive your loved one to the appointment, walk into the room with them if they're comfortable. Because here's the twist. Doctors often take concerns more seriously when they see family members reinforcing them. It's human nature.
So a little backup can go a long way.
It really can. And here's another strategy. Bring documentation. Write down your symptoms, the dates they happened, what you were doing at the time. A 2020 review in BMJ Quality and Safety found that when patients brought written records, doctors were more likely to order appropriate tests and less likely to dismiss vague complaints. Paper speaks louder than memory.
So instead of just saying, I feel tired, you can say, I've had fatigue for 6 weeks. I've noted it happens in the afternoon. And here are the 3 times it kept me from cooking dinner. That's a lot harder to brush off.
Exactly. Specifics turn feelings into data. And data drives action. Now, Susan, let me add one more point. Timing matters. If you feel dismissed, you don't have to fight it out in the moment. You can always say, I'd like to schedule another appointment just to go deeper into this concern. That gives you space to regroup, prepare, and come back stronger.
I love that. Because sometimes in the room, you're flustered, you freeze, you don't know what to say. Knowing you can come back for a dedicated visit, it feels empowering.
And that's the mindset shift. You're not a burden. You're the reason healthcare exists, and your persistence could literally save your life.
And I think that's the real message here, that silence can be deadly, but questions can be life-saving. Which makes me think, Dr. Harper, sometimes the hardest part is not just speaking up, but knowing when not to take fine as the final answer. How do you know when to push for more?
That's a great question. And the answer is when your body is telling you something your doctor isn't hearing. If your symptoms persist, if your gut says something is wrong, if you feel worse despite treatment, that's your signal. In a moment, I'll share the red flag signs every senior should never ignore, no matter what they've been told. When should you push? There are some red flags you should never ignore. Persistent pain that doesn't improve with basic treatment. Unexplained weight loss or gain. Sudden changes in memory, balance, or mood. Shortness of breath with minimal activity. Severe fatigue that keeps you from daily routines. These are not just aging. They are the body's alarm bells.
And yet, those are the exact symptoms people brush off, or worse, get told are nothing.
Exactly. A 2022 study in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society showed that nearly 40% of seniors reported having a symptom dismissed by a doctor in the past year. That's almost half of older adults being told their suffering was normal. And yet, in follow-up, many were later diagnosed with conditions that needed treatment, from thyroid disorders to early cancers, which means the window to act was nearly lost.
I think about Carol again with her heart symptoms brushed aside, and I wonder how many people listening right now are quietly saying, that's me. That's exactly what happened to me.
And if that's you, this is your permission slip to keep asking, to seek that second opinion, because the stakes are too high to stay silent.
And it doesn't have to be combative. It can be compassionate persistence. I like that phrase. It's a little like parenting, isn't it? You repeat yourself calmly until someone really hears you.
I love that. Yes, compassionate persistence. And here's the truth. Persistence pays. A 2020 Cleveland Clinic study found that seniors who pursued a second opinion were not only more likely to receive an accurate diagnosis, but also reported higher satisfaction, reduced anxiety, and greater trust in their eventual care plan. It's not just about survival, it's about peace of mind.
And peace of mind is priceless because worry alone can make you sick.
Absolutely. Anxiety, sleepless nights, fear, they take their toll. Knowing you've double-checked, that you've done everything you can, that restores control. And control is something many seniors feel slipping away. Taking it back one question at a time is powerful.
I think about my listeners sitting at their kitchen tables, pill bottles lined up, wondering if they're being heard. And I want to say to them, you're not being a burden when you ask. You're being brave.
Well said, Susan. And bravery doesn't mean going it alone. Bring your notes. Bring your loved one. Bring your questions. Every one of those tools is part of your armor because healthcare is complicated and even the best doctors can miss things. But together, with persistence and advocacy, we catch what's hiding.
You know, Dr. Harper, I feel like this conversation has been giving our listeners a toolbox, piece by piece, words to use, red flags to notice, and even permission to trust their gut.
That's the goal. And I'll leave one more phrase for anyone who feels dismissed. Simply say, "Doctor, I hear you, but my symptoms are real, and I need us to keep looking." That one line keeps the door open. It tells your doctor you won't vanish into silence.
And if your doctor still won't listen, it's okay to find one who will, because your health, your life is worth that fight.
Exactly. Switching doctors isn't betrayal, it's survival. And sometimes it's the key to finally being seen.
So if you take one thing from tonight, let it be this. Your voice matters. Don't let "you're fine" be the end of your story.
And remember, a second opinion doesn't mean your first doctor was wrong. It just means you're covering every angle. That's what good health advocacy looks like.
Dr. Harper, thank you, as always, for giving us not just information, but courage. And to our listeners, you are not alone in this. Your questions are valid, your instincts are valid, and your health is worth speaking up for. Next week, we'll be uncovering something just as urgent, the hidden signs of bone loss every senior needs to know. You won't want to miss it. Until then, keep asking, keep advocating, and keep believing in your right to be heard.